Hey friends, welcome back. Lectric is back with the sequel to the XP Trike. Now the XP Trike was a successful bike launch when it came out in 2023, but like all first production models, there was a couple areas for feedback to improve, specifically around rider comfort. So Lectric went back into the lab and they started cooking up this, the XP Trike2. And not only did they address those comfort issues and concerns from the first version, but they added some other upgrades and features across the front to back of the bike as well. So let's go through all those specs, we'll talk about those improvements and features, and we'll see what makes this the best XP Trike yet. All right guys, so the new XP Trike 2, very cool right off the bat. This thing is priced at the same $14.99 that the last one was priced at that came out in 2023. And I'm not quite sure how Lectric keeps managing to do this, giving you a better bike with more features, better components, more expensive build, what appears to be from my end, and somehow keeping that same price for us as the consumers, which is really great news, especially in a time full of tariffs. But with that said, this bike is also UL 2271 certified on the battery and 2849 certified on the e-bike's electrical system as well. So they've invested that money in that standard certification testing just to kind of pass on that peace of mind to you guys. Now, in addition to that, they say this bike weighs 79 pounds, but of course you guys know I weigh them when I get them in, and I got 91 pounds, about a 12-pound difference. It's pretty substantial. I'm not sure the difference or why I got that, but I did double check and triple check my scale, and then I actually checked the accuracy of my scale by using gym weights on it because I know for a fact what those weigh, and the scale's on. So nonetheless, just know that this one for me did end up weighing 91 pounds despite the advertised 79. Just something to keep in mind if you have to lift it often and that is a factor for you. Now, when it comes to things like colors, this is their Tempest Gray. It almost looks black when you kind of glance at it indoors, but when you get it out in the sun, you can tell it's more of a muted gray. But they also have several other colors, like 5 other colors. They have 2 versions of blue. They have a white, they have like a lavender haze purplish color, and even a red color. So there's plenty of colors to pick from, everything from just reserved and mild to this dark gray to something more fun and brighter like the reds or purples and light blues. Kind of something for everybody there. Now there's only one frame size. This frame size is what you see is what you get, and this fits a pretty broad range from 410 on the low end all the way up to riders who are 6'2". So anywhere between 4'10" and 6'2", this ride should be able to accommodate you. Now I'm 5'11". I had plenty of room left in the seat post to go higher if I wanted to. I could adjust the reach up top if I needed to, but I have no doubt that at 6'2", you'll be able to make this work for you as well. Now, in terms of some numbers about this frame, we have a 44.5-inch wheelbase from front hub to the center of the rear axle here. We have a minimum seat post height from 30 inches off the ground up to 42 inches off the ground, so about 12 inches of adjustability here. We have between a 16 and 19-inch reach up top, depending on how you angle that stem. And then we have a max capacity of 415 pounds. This is a pretty beefy payload on here, but that's with the caveat that the rider weight cannot exceed 330 pounds. But all in all, this has a max payload of 415 pounds. And then a really cool feature for anybody concerned about stability or balance when you're getting on and off a bike. You know, the higher these bikes go up, the more risky it can be to get on and off of them. So they have a nice, really low standover height of just 13.5 inches at the smallest point there to step over. So it's a lot less of a tripping hazard or a balance issue when it's been a while since you got on a bike. That's gonna make this just a little bit easier for you. Now, when it comes to things like tires and wheels, we've got 3 wheels and tires because, well, it's a trike. And each one of these is a 20-inch alloy wheel with Schrader valves. And these are 20 by 2.5-inch tires. Now, these tires have a nice commuter slick tread pattern on them with some slight traction for things like wet pavement and stuff like that, and a reflective sidewall strip so your tires can be seen from a side profile, headlights, things like that if you're riding in the evening or at night. Another cool thing about these is they pre-install these from the factory with slime. Slime is a substance that can be put inside the tubes, and if you get a puncture, a small nail or something or staple goes through your tire, that slime will seal it up and keep you rolling so you don't have to pull over and you're forced to change your tire. And if you've never changed a tire on an e-bike, just know it's a little bit more work and requires a little bit more muscle than a standard bike. So to have that slime pre-installed, that's going to go ahead and mitigate a lot of those flats or potential flats for you. It was just a really cool thing from the factory that they definitely didn't have to do, but I'm glad to see it on my end as someone who goes out here and rides in an area where it's easy to get flats. Now, things like fenders, racks, lighting, we do have fenders on all 3 wheels here. They are a polycarbonate or a plastic fender. Lighting up front, we have an adjustable upgraded light that comes free right now with the bike. There's a 90 lumen standard light that comes with it, but right now on the website they're including this 850 lux light with an adjustable big kind of moto style light. Very bright, very nice. On the back end we have tail light and brake light indicators, as well as turn signals. So you have full front to back lighting with turn signals that are activated from the top while you're driving. Now, when it comes to racks, we do get included 2 racks here. The front rack is off right now, but it's rated to hold 30 pounds. The rear rack here is about 12 by 18 inches, so 12 inches deep and 18 inches wide between the 2 wheels here. And it's rated to hold up to 75 pounds, keeping in mind that the whole payload is 415 pounds. Now, one cool thing, when we did the range test, we had my friend help out with range test, and she only weighs about 140 pounds. And so to make her weight more closer to about 180 pounds, like a typical adult rider would be, we put 40 pounds of sandbags in the back and do the range test with that. So when we talk about range numbers, just know that's with an adult female rider and 40 pounds of gear in the back, kind of a true torture test of a trike and the cargo system, but it performed really, really well if you don't have time to stick around and wait for that. And then in terms of things like adding extra accessories, you've got 3 bosses on the down tube there to add water bottle cages or accessories, and then 2 more on the seat tube. So between the front rack, back rack, and all the different bottle cage mounts, plenty of ways to kind of rig this out and carry things the way you want to on your rides. All right, so let's talk about power delivery on the XP Trike 2. So right here we have a 500 watt motor. Now, if you're thinking you want more than that or you want more power, just know that for an additional $300, you can get the more powerful version. And that one will be $17.99, but it comes with a 750 watt motor and some extended range to it as well. So just know that this is the 500 watt version, but if you do want more for an extra 300 bucks, you still do get a 750 watt motor and a more beefed up battery and more range. But we'll stick with this for now, 500 watt rear hub motor here. Now this motor puts out up to 1,092 watts, and it can peak torque at 65 Newton meters. So 500 watts nominally, peaking wattage 1,092, and then torque 65 Newton meters. Now in a combo like this, I was actually pleasantly surprised. It handled hills pretty well, it handled cargo really well, and it still has a little bit of acceleration when you want to playfully ride on it, but nothing crazy, because at the end of the day, it's still a trike and they don't want this thing rolling over, tipping and cornering and things like that. So it's not built for speed. It's got a max speed of just 14 miles an hour. But on a trike like this, I really think that's all you need, and it feels peppy around town. On flats and straights, you can get around as quickly as you want. Hills, it can moderately climb hills really well. And at the end of the day, it just performs in a really balanced way. The motor's quiet. It's got 4 levels of pedal assist. You've got Eco, Sport, Tour, and Turbo. But then they also did something very cool, which I think on a trike is a smart move. They added something called beginner mode. So if you get this bike and it's been a while since you've been on one, or you're a little apprehensive about riding an e-bike and you don't want that power jolt, or you don't want to be taken off guard or, off balance, they have beginner mode. You go right into the menu, activate beginner mode, and what that does is that reduces the speeds in PAS 1s and 2s, and it even reduces the overall speed to 12 miles an hour, and it dials back acceleration, and it just allows you to kind of slowly ease into owning the bike without getting too much power at once. And then once you feel comfortable with it, you can bump it back up to standard mode, or you can keep it in beginner mode forever. I would think that if you're in beginner mode, you're probably gonna get more range and efficiency because you're using less motor power and battery power. But nonetheless, if you just want to ease into owning this and you want to take time, some digital training wheels, if you will, beginner mode was a very cool feature to put on here. Now the motor is activated by a cadence sensor. Now cadence sensors can be anything from really sensitive and jumpy to more relaxed and toned down. This one has about a quarter to a half turn of the pedals before it does kick on the motor. And when it kicks on, it does ease into power. It doesn't jolt you, but it has enough power to quickly get up to speed when it wants to. So cadence sensor on this is what you're gonna get. Keep in mind though, if you're wanting a torque sensor, they do have a torque sensor version. It's gonna be in that 750 watt version. So basically for an extra 300 bucks, you get 750 watt motor with a torque sensor and some additional range. So that's something to keep in mind if you want the bigger numbers, or if you're focused on having a torque sensor. Now, things like the battery here, you can see it's encased right here in the frame underneath the seat along the seat tube. This is a 48 volt battery with 13 amp hours, giving us 624 watt hours of power. And also it is UL 2271 certified. You can take it out. I'm not gonna do it right here. It's just simply a set of keys. You put it in and you can pull it up right out of here and put it back inside. There's nothing tricky to it, no covers, no latches. It's very straightforward and easy to get in and out. The good news is you do have a key and locking ability. If you want to take it off the bike for storage or lock it up for security reasons, you have that as well. Now this battery and this bike has a 1-year warranty, and when it comes to range, they say you can get up to 50 miles. Now I took this out on the minimum test. I took this out on the maximum test and I got 31 miles, and that's basically going full speed, 14 miles an hour the whole time. And then a friend of mine helped on the minimum test, and she weighs about 140 pounds. So we threw another 40 pounds of weight in the back here just to kind of offset and kind of supplement some of that missing weight of my body weight when I do the rides. And so she did it, and she still got 51 miles, and that's with a 140-pound rider and 40 pounds of cargo back here. So you really can get some very solid numbers that do meet that 50-mile range expectation. And if you really need more, although 50 miles is pretty good, you can go for the 750-watt version, and that will have some extra range as well. I think up to 80 miles, somewhere in that ballpark. In terms of just general performance though, getting between 31 miles at full speed and 51 miles at minimum speed just shows that if you're just playing with the PAS levels, mixing between them as you ride, you can reasonably expect to get anywhere in that 30 to 50 mile radius. Of course, with the variables like rider weight, elevation in your area, those things will affect it. But in pretty normal conditions, it can meet and even slightly exceed those expectations set out by Lectric. All right, when it comes to components on the XP Trike 2, there was some bumps here and some specs from the original version. I'm gonna start with just the basics, and that is the frame. If you look at this frame and then you look up a picture of the last version of the Trike, you'll see that this frame looks a lot sleeker, a lot cleaner, less weld marks and things like that. That's because they have redesigned this frame, and ultimately it looks better. It's got slightly different angles on the stem. It has a new 9-degree stem angle that shortens the reach. It's got a slightly different seat tube angle, and all that does is just kind of make a more comfortable ride for you, the rider. Now, on top of that, when it comes to things like the drivetrain, we do have a single speed setup, so no gears to change through. You're always in one gear or one single speed, and that's consisting of a 16-tooth cog in the rear or freewheel in the rear and a 36-tooth chainring up front, which in my experience, it gives me pretty easy pedaling around flats. Something if this thing ran out of batteries on flat roads, I could just ride it home. It wouldn't be much of an issue. It's not something you're going to be pedaling up hills on without motor power, so that's something to keep in mind as well. But it eliminates all the rear derailleur and changing gears and that kind of maintenance too, which is a good thing. Now, on top of that, when it comes to braking, we do have Star Union brakes. These are an upgraded brake set that they got for this year's Trike. Now, these are 180 millimeter rotors, but they have a thicker 2.3 millimeter to them, so the thickness is quite a bit thicker, and that extra thickness is going to help with cooling and ultimately longer life on the brake pads themselves and the calipers. Now, we do have 2 piston calipers on the front and the back. We have 1 rotor and caliper on the front wheel, and then 1 single rotor caliper centered on the rear axle that applies braking power to both rear wheels. And when we go for a ride in just a second, I'll kind of talk about how that feels and how I mitigate using that. Just know though, not 3 calipers and 3 brakes. It is 1 for the rear 2 wheels and 1 up front for that front wheel. Now, when it comes to the saddle here, now Lectric will ship the Trike with a standard saddle, but right now they're offering an upgraded free extra accessory with this backrest supported saddle. And this has an adjustable backrest part to it where you can kind of dial in the fit based on where your back positioning is and give you a more comfortable ride. Now, when I first got on it, I didn't think it was very comfortable, but I got under here, loosened these bolts, and that allowed me to move the seat forward and backward and kind of play with the tilt angle of it. And ultimately, I got into a position, I had to move it back a little bit and tilt it just slightly rear end down. And for me, that ended up being a lot more comfortable than the standard way that I had originally put it on when I got it out of the box. On top of that, this has a suspension seat post they're throwing in, and this suspension seat post has 40 millimeters of travel. You can see when I push on it, it'll go down and absorb that. Now, what that means for you is while you're riding this bike, you're not gonna get all those bumps that you normally feel in the saddle, kind of going up through your spine and lower back. Those are gonna get handled here with this suspension seat post, and that's just gonna take out some of that lower back impacts. It's gonna make it more comfortable. Up front here, we see one big complaint last time was kind of a harsh ride. And so now we've got this upgraded saddle and seat post, and now we've got this Cloud 50 suspension fork. So this suspension fork has 50 millimeters of travel. It's got a coil spring with a preload and a lockout adjustment. If I flip this switch, it will lock out the coil if you don't want that being used. Nope, didn't lock that out. There we go. There you go. So now I can push on it and it locks out that coil from being used, and I can flip it back and get my suspension back. The fork did a really good job in eating up those front impacts. Coming down off curbs, going up a curb, transitions in sidewalks, cracks in the road, things like that. This did a good job of just eating those up. And then when you couple it with this back here, the ride comfort's just gotten really, really good on this trike. So moving up to the cockpit area, pretty typical what we see these days. We have all of our cables and wires running off the front into some wraps that keep them all contained, and then down into the frame where they're internally routed to their final destination. Up top here, we have a BMX style bar. It's about 25-inch wide bar with ergo lock-on grips on both ends with ergo platforms for your palms and lock-on so they won't spin over time or get loose. Now for throttle, we do have a twist throttle here. You can see it's right here on this right side. And on this end, we have brake levers on both ends, excuse me. Both brake levers have these parking brake adjusters. So if I was to turn those off, the bike can roll around. But when I lock it and turn it on, the bike stays right in place. It's kind of a necessity on a trike because a trike has 3 wheels. A 2-wheeled bike, you put on a kickstand. If you're on an uneven surface, the kickstand will kind of keep it from going anywhere. But a trike, because all its contact points are wheels, if it's a tilted surface, the trike will roll away. So having these front and back parking brakes was a really nice touch as well. Now on the left-hand side, we have the PAS controls with the turn signal indicators. And then in the center, we have our new 3.5-inch full color TFT display. But let's take a closer look at this because they really did a bang up job on this display. And for those of you who remember the old annoying menus, those are gone. It's now very easy to use. So let's take a closer look at that. All right, guys, so this is the new 3.5-inch full color display. So this display's got a couple cool features. One hand, it is detachable. You can actually remove this for security purposes if you want to. I'm not going to do that now so we can continue going through all the options. There's also a USB Type-C charging port on the bottom. So if your phone's dying and you've got plenty of juice in your bike, just pop it on a phone holder and you can plug it in and charge it while you drive it home, or charge another device like your EarPods or whatever, AirPods. It's just a pretty cool feature to have Type-C charging on these displays. But the biggest and most important and coolest aspect of this display is the plain language displays. Guys, I don't know if you remember the old versions, but they needed codes and manuals and looked like you were trying to figure out a foreign language. Now everything is just straightforward and easy to use. So this is a nice, clean, minimalistic display while you're riding. Up top, we have the battery in bars and percentages. We have the speed in the center, which can be changed to kilometers if you want to. We have the PAS level currently showing as off, but as I toggle the up and down arrows, you can see it will change between eco all the way through sport, all the way through turbo, and I'll turn that back off. But if you want to see other data while you're riding, you can tap the power button and look at these nice clean displays. Got all your info still, your speed at all times, you'll still see it, your average speed, your trip time, your odometer, your trip distance. Hit it again, you get your miles per hour, you get cadence, you get power output in watts, amps, and volts. Those will all be changing real time while you're driving, but since we're riding, but since we're still, those are all going to be zeros right now. And then one more takes you back to the basic home screen. But let's go into the deeper menus because that's where this gets even better to use. Usually that's where everything got difficult, but now it's very straightforward. We'll hold the plus and the minus buttons, and that's going to take us into the advanced settings. Now here you can see you can adjust everything based on just what it says. It's very simple to understand. You can go to screen brightness and you can change how bright it is, or put it on an auto mode. You can see right now it's on 3. Excuse me, you have 1, 2, or 3, not auto mode. And so we'll go to 3 just to keep it bright for this. You have sleep mode, and that's where you can pick how long it takes the bike to shut off after you've walked away. So say you forget to turn it off, you walk away, go inside. Well, in 15 minutes, it's going to automatically put itself to sleep. You can back out of here. So we're going to go distance units here. This is where you can change between miles per hour and kilometers per hour, or kilometers and miles in the odometer. We'll stay on miles. Trip time, this is just going to be the timer for the trip. Tire size, if you had a different wheel or tire size on here, you can make an adjustment so the speedo stays correct. Bike classification, this is where you can change between class 1 or class 2, and we'll keep it on class 2. You can go rider mode here, and this is that beginner or standard mode. Remember, beginner is going to be for people who don't want all the power and ability at once. They want to kind of ease into owning this and riding it so they're comfortable, which is a really smart feature. This is where you go in there. You just tap beginner, we'll hit it there, and we're good to go. Now we'll go down to throttle and PAS toggle, or pedal assist system toggle. So you have 3 options. One is that pedal assist is active and the throttle is not. The middle one says pedal assist is not active, but only the throttle. And then what we have, which is what most e-bikes are, is you have pedal assist and throttle all the time. But you can change it depending on where you are, the rules, what you like to do. That's a nice feature as well. So we'll go down here to throttle output. This, you can actually set this to where based on your pedal assist level, so in eco mode, the throttle wouldn't go past, let's just say 5 miles an hour. And on sport mode, it wouldn't go past 8 miles an hour. I'm making up arbitrary numbers, but it basically will let you tie the throttle to whatever assistance level you're in. But if you don't like that, you can go here and just have full throttle output at any PAS level. So really, if you want to keep your throttle kind of governed based on what PAS level you're using, you can activate that top button. And if you want full throttle at any given moment, you can leave the bottom one activated like I'll do now. Now, if you go down one more time, you can have throttle from a 0 start. And what that means is, on this option, the throttle is active from a standstill. So I can sit on the bike and I can not pedal at all, and I can turn the throttle and it will just start going. But if I don't like that and I don't want to accidentally bump it, I don't like that feature, it makes me nervous, I can go down here and make the throttle only work when I'm already up to speed and moving, which is more of a safety feature for those who don't want to deal with it, or it's kind of an efficiency feature too, because it's going to take off that huge strain on the battery that if you throttle from a dead stop, you use a lot of juice when you do that. And if you activate only the throttle can be used while you're already moving, you're going to have much less strain on the battery when you're using that throttle, and potentially and theoretically probably more range and efficiency. Now you go down to walk mode. This is where you can pick the walk mode speeds. You can have no walk mode, you can have walk mode at 3 miles an hour, and you can have walk mode at 3.7 miles an hour, just depending on what your preference is. And down here, light operation. So right now it says lights are off until manually turned on. And so to turn those on, I would hold the plus button and you'd get a headlight indicator and the lights will turn on. It won't do that in the sub menu. But if I go down to lights flashing when bike is on, that's pretty cool. You can see it already, maybe you can't, but it will flash on my, all the lights front and back will flash while you ride. And depending on where you live, how busy it is, and how much you want to be seen, and just that extra layer of security and safety, that's a cool feature as well. But I'm going to turn that off for here. And then the next one is going to be a reset the odometer. And then that is going to be it. We're back up top to screen brightness. So to back out of this, I'll hold plus and minus. And we're back to the home screen with all of our menus. It's a really nice system, really clean layout, really nice to see, even in direct sunlight. It's got high contrast. They just did a solid job on this. Plus the USB Type-C charging is always a hit with me as well. All right guys, so let's talk about folding, because this is a folding trike at the end of the day, courtesy of that big hinge you see at the low standover height area. Now, normally I would just fold this up for you and show you how it works, but this is a little bit different. So it is a folding trike, and you can technically fold it a little bit right now, but per the manual, it says if you're gonna really fold this up to its true dimensions, you need to remove the front wheel, the fenders, and the racks, which I'm obviously not gonna do all that and break it down right here. It's more of an ability to fold for more of a long-term storage or traveling storage type deal, not just a quick daily fold up, fold down type of situation. Now, when you do fold it down, following the directions by removing that front wheel, the dimensions when it's folded are about 36 inches long, forward and aft, about 38 inches wide, and then about 26 inches tall. And you do have the flipping down telescoping stem up top. You take off the front tire and you can hinge it around and fold it into itself into those smaller dimensions. Now, I'll always just remind everybody, it's a 90 to 100 pound trike. If you're gonna do it and pick it up and move it around, always have that second person with you. But other than that, it's at least good to know that if you need to store it long term and you want a smaller footprint for it, you can get it there with that folding feature. All right guys, we're out here on the new Lectric XP Trike2. And this being the sequel to the original XP Trike, it's got some changes. And some of those changes can be felt in just the comfort factor, which is we've got the suspension fork up front, which now has 50 millimeters of travel. So if you do hit bumps, roots, imperfections in the sidewalk, things like that, it just helps take that edge off. So right now I've got it in standard mode. This is a really cool feature they added. So they've got beginner mode or standard mode. Standard mode is going to be just normal power, the way the bike was kind of equipped to ride. But trikes can be a little tricky if you're not used to them, if you've never rode one before, or if it's been a long time since you rode one and you kind of have forgotten about that tipping factor or just, you know, the three-wheel stability. It's not really an issue, but if you're just a little cautious about it or want to be cautious about it, they have what's called beginner mode. And so I'll show you, well, first I'll show you, we'll put it in boost and show you how quick we can accelerate and travel. So I'll just go from here. That's full throttle right there. And so we're at about 10 to the max speed of 14 right there. And so That moves fairly quick. It's fairly punchy for a trike. But if I hold the menu button, I can go into here. Oh, it's telling me to stop the ride first. So we'll go down to rider mode, and here you can go into what's called, you can go out of standard mode into beginner mode. And what that's going to do is that's going to dial things back a little bit. So now we'll do the same full throttle from turbo. It's a lot more subtle, a lot more relaxed. Now we're getting to 10. Now we're getting to 12. And now we're getting to, not even yet, we're topping out at 12 miles an hour. So basically, if you want to just, well, just like the mode is called, beginner mode, if you're a beginner to this or want to feel like a beginner and you want to take it slow, on your left, this is a perfect opportunity to just dial back the power, take it slow, learn the bike, get used to how it corners and handles, feel those points where the kind of, you know, your center of gravity gets shifted. And that will really let you just get more comfortable with the bike before you go to that standard mode and maybe make, you know, a mishap or have something happen. This will just allow you to ease into riding the bike, learning the bike, getting a feel for it, which is really the best way to ride any bike. You want to just take your time and ease into it. And I think that beginner mode is a really great feature for that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it back to standard mode, and then we'll hit these small hills up here and see how the trike performs. There's a short, punchy 9% grade. It's not very long, but it's a 9% chunk, and it's enough to make most bikes feel it a little bit. We'll see how it does there. And then beyond that, we'll go into the neighborhood, and there's about a quarter-mile long stretch of uphill, a little bit more reserved, about 5 to 7%. But it's a kind of a, it's in a long tax on the motor because it's just a climb for about a quarter mile. And so we'll see how the bike does there too. But nice and quiet. The only things I can hear right now are the 2 rear ratcheted hubs and the 2 rear wheels. And the torque sensor feels nice and smooth on here. The motor's quiet. I can hear it a little bit, but it's not loud at all. All in all, feels very dialed in. You can tell it's a sequel version or something that they've improved upon from the previous version. It just feels a little bit more refined everywhere. But let me go back to standard mode. That guy's got a trike and he is cruising. He's not in beginner mode. All right, let's go down to rider mode again, and we'll go back to standard. Hold plus and minus to get out of the menu, and we're back. So I'm gonna take it off of turbo and put it in sport. And then when we get to the hills, I'll go up to turbo. So nice, even though I'm in sport mode, it was not a crazy acceleration, but still faster than turbo mode when you have that beginner setting on. So you can have a punchier, quicker version of the trike or a more relaxed and reserved version of the trike. On the plus side, one will be faster and a little bit more fun and punchy if you want that. And on the other side, if you want the more reserved beginner mode, it's going to be a little bit safer for riding around, and probably, I haven't tested this, but I would think less motor work, less power means more efficiency and more range, but that's only a speculation on my part. So we're going at 14 miles an hour, which is the trike's max. And if I'm pedaling right now, and I'm not getting a ton of feedback in the pedals. It's not quite like ghost pedaling. There's some feedback there, but this is not something you'd be able to effectively pedal yourself beyond 15 miles an hour. It'd be pretty tough. So let's go to turbo mode, hit this 9% right here, see if we have any change in speed. We can watch the 2 odometers and see if any of them react to this hill, which most bikes do about a mile an hour or 2 or 3. So we're down to about half mile below, full mile an hour, almost 2. So we got down to about 1.7, 1.8 miles an hour below what we were traveling at, which is very par for the course for good power. And with 65 Newton meters, the 500 watt motor with the ability for it to peak up to 1,092 watts, you've got plenty of power for a trike that is not built for speed, but it's built to carry a good load at a 415 pound max payload capacity and still be able to take you and your gear or your pet up a hill without struggling. But speaking of a hill without struggling, let's turn into this neighborhood and do the throttle only on this incline that goes for about a quarter mile at a 5 to 7% grade. So I'm going to stop here. All right, so I'm just going to throttle it, and we're just going to head up the hill. So we're accelerating up the hill right now. We're already at the Trike's max, so obviously no problems for the Trike. I do see it fluctuate between about 13.8 and 14.2, and it kind of bounces in between, but that's right within a half mile of its top speed, so that makes sense. Kind of self-governing, backing off, self-governing. So we're still cruising. This is the steepest part right here, and we're holding 14.1, 14.2, kind of fluctuating between the two of those. So really no loss of power, no inability to get my 180 pounds and the Trike up the hill without losing speed. It's holding everything really nicely. I can already feel not only just the front suspension fork, like on those dips, I can feel it give a little bit up front, which if it wasn't there, I'd be feeling more of an impact. And I think that was a big point for a lot of folks on the last version, was it was just a little too rigid, a little too stiff of a ride. And they've really cleaned it up with that front suspension fork, that Cloud 50, and it's 50 Newton meters. But on top of that, they now are giving, at least right now when you buy it, you get a free suspension seat post with about 40 millimeters of travel in the seat post. And so between the two, your lower back, your arms, a lot of that stuff's getting absorbed before your body feels it. And if you feel it, it's a much more reduced version of that impact. So it goes a long way in the fork and the suspension seat post as far as like rider comfort goes. So we're gonna go around this little roundabout. I'm going about 12, and you can tell it's holding all three wheels are on the ground, so that's kind of a good little test. Had I hit that a little bit harder, I'm sure we would have got one of those wheels off the ground. But I'm gonna turn on the turn signal here. You can see it kicks on and it holds. I'm gonna wait for this car to go. They're gonna let me, so I'm gonna go. Turn signal's still on. And then once I'm out of the turn, I'm just going to hit the turn signal button again, and boom, turn signal's off. So braking wise, hydraulic disc brakes by Star Union, and these also have these really cool braking parking brake levers. You can lock the tires in place, which on a Trike with no kickstand, if the ground's not perfectly level, it's just gonna roll away. So that's a really nice feature. But let's check the brakes here. We're gonna go like way over the top speed of the bike. So now we're at 18, 19 when the top speed's 14. And let's hit the brakes in 3, 2, 1. Really nice stopping power. It felt great. I mean, that was surprisingly good. I did notice, because we have one caliper on the front wheel, one caliper to stop the front wheel, and then we have one caliper centrally mounted on the rear axle to stop both of the rear wheels. If I am going and I apply just the front brake, I get some pretty strong stopping power by myself with just a couple fingers on the lever. If I do just the back brake, think one caliper stopping two wheels now, so twice the effort, and I hit the brake, I can definitely feel it's slower to slow down, but that's given because there's one caliper on the rear for both tires. So what I do is I always just do equal amount, roughly an equal amount of both at the same time, and that just gives nice, smooth, controlled braking front to back, where you're not having too much or too little on one tire or the other. I'll tell you what, I've had a couple Trikes this year. If you look through the video reviews we've done, this year was kind of a like early 2025, late 2024 was like year of the Trike, it felt like. And so the last 6 to 12 months, I've done a few Trikes from all the brands, and I gotta say, this one feels very dialed in. It's just smooth, it's quiet, it's peppy, it's got that beginner mode, so it's gonna be good for anybody who wants to ease back in, but still wants enough punchy power to get up hills, take their groceries with them, or their grandkids, or their pets, and have enough power to get around, get up some hills, get around town, and a nice stable platform. And even better for somebody who's apprehensive about getting on a bike, because with that beginner mode, you're really kind of just putting some digital training wheels on the bike and allowing it to slow down for you and just let you learn about the ride and how it feels, which is really cool. But let's go back, put it up on a stand, and talk about it from like an owner standpoint, some things you maybe not notice when you look at it on the website, some things maintenance-wise, service-wise, and we'll talk about those features. All right, guys, so let's talk about some things from more of an ownership, service, mechanic standpoint, the things you might not think about when you're just looking at it on the website and you buy it. First things first, I'll just kick off with some of the things I really like that they did, and then I'll go over some things that have kind of been just another area for improvement if they do make another version of these down the road. So first things first, the new frame design. It's got less weld marks. It feels sturdier and more rigid. I think it's a little bit heavier, probably where we got some of the extra weight from this time. But nonetheless, it looks better, it feels better, and it's got slightly better rider geometry with this 9-degree stem and the reach brought back just a little bit, as well as you still got the telescoping stem up here so you can adjust, you know, your hand height and stuff like that. Just well done, thoughtful changes on the geometry that are going to go a long way in making the bike more comfortable. On top of that, this new Cloud 50 suspension fork has a through axle up front. A through axle is just going to be a more sturdy way to apply this wheel to the front fork with a better connection, a stronger connection, but it's still quick and easy to remove it, unlike kind of a flimsy quick release rod. Now on top of that, we have a nice open frame design, meaning nothing is kind of, there's no tech hidden in here. You got your battery, you got your battery right here, your controller and your wires right here, and then your motor, brake rotors, chain, everything is kind of accessible. If you remove this top basket with 4 bolts, you can get right into these things if you have to work on them. It's just easy to access those things. No crazy internally routed cables through the headset or anything like that. It's a very straightforward ride and easy to work with. Now, in terms of things that I would, one other thing on here is these brakes, these Star Union brakes. Not only did they add 2.3 rotors, so it's going to have better cooling and better performance, but on top of that, they added adjustable reaches. You can change the reach, so how far this brake lever sticks out. You can kind of make an adjustment with an Allen key, and if your hands aren't that long, you can bring those in to where your hands can rest on them in a good position that's usable versus really sticking them out really far. Now, if your hands are longer on the opposite side, you can tweak it the other way and it'll push those levers out further. So that adjustable reach is going to be just based on hand size. It's a small feature, but it goes a long way in just intuitive riding, braking, control, and ultimately safety. Now, if I was going to talk about things that would improve, I'm not sure how to improve the first one, but the first one's going to be weight. Without the basket, this is a 91-pound trike, or at least how I weighed it myself. Once you add both baskets on, it becomes closer to about 102 pounds. So a pretty substantial weight there when you think about moving this around, lifting it up. It's definitely a 2-person job. It's not something you're going to want to do by yourself. I wouldn't even do it by myself. I'd probably throw my back out almost immediately. So something to think about there with the weight. But on top of that, the only other thing I would critique on here is I like the fact that they gave us this upgraded 850 lux headlight. It's bright. It's got an adjustable angle on it. It looks good. It'll clear the path in front of you. All those things are all positives. The only negative I have is it's taller than the standard headlight that comes with it. And so when you put on the front basket, which is why it's not on right now, it actually made me kind of lean this down a little bit so the basket could sit flush the way it should. It's not a deal killer because the headlight still points down and forward in front of me, but I didn't like how close it was. If you see the rack being on here right now, there's just not a lot of room for this light. And so I keep the front rack off. That way I can mess with the light how I want and not keep it crammed in there. But in future releases, if they could somehow maybe have a little bit more space in this head tube or a little bit higher bolt bracket so you could raise the rack just a bit off the ground, however they did mitigate it, I would just say find a way to have the front rack not interfere with the front headlight. But nonetheless, the headlight still works and the rack still works. You could definitely still run them both. I just felt that it was a little too cramped up front. Other than that, Lectric always makes good bikes. They put out good products, and this one is definitely an improved version over the last one. All right, guys, so there you have it, the new Lectric XP Trike 2. In my opinion, they did a really solid job here. Why is that? Well, we got those upgraded features, upgraded improvements in comfort, better parts and components, and once again, Lectric kept it that same price that started it all at $14.99. They're just becoming known for that, and it's kind of impressive at this point, especially with all the economic stuff we have going on. Now, with that said, I was still able to cover over 50 miles of range in this. It had great acceleration and hill climbing for a trike, the ability to carry up to 415 pounds. Frankly, it was just a very solid setup. But remember, if you want more, maybe you're thinking the 500 watts is not enough, you want 750, or you want more range, or maybe you just gotta have a torque sensor. Well, for an extra 300 bucks, for $17.99, they do have the 750 watt version where you get all those extra features like the more powerful motor, the longer range, and the upgraded sensor in the motor. So you've really got multiple options on this, 6 total colors to pick from. Really, the world is yours when you pick one of these. They have lots of different ways to customize it and ride it the way you want. Now, if I missed any details that you're interested in, just drop a comment down below. I will figure that out and personally get back to you so you have that info. And until the next review comes out, I'll see you guys out on the trail.